closing out the chapter of 2021. Wasn't it a great ride? Seriously, we are getting ready for 2022. But I know that 2021 had to have had some lessons. What did you learn? I hope you took notes, because as we move into 2022, we want to let go of the things that no longer serve us. We want to let ourselves feel the energy of what we want in our lives, what we want to create. We want to let go of the hurt, the pain, the loss. It hasn't been an easy year for almost anyone. Everyone's going through a shift or a change. And I know that here throughout the world, everywhere, people have been gathering and trying to celebrate as best we could. And then, dun, 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 there's that looming energy of disease around the corner. So what do we do with that? One thing we could have learned from this year is how resilient we are, how courageous we are, how resourceful we are, how you could be positive in what looks like something that isn't very positive, how you can be resourceful with your finances. And many of us had to learn to trust our partners, to trust our friends, our family. We had to really see who was who and connect with the people that we could count on, who had your back in 2021. Who was looking out for you? Who did right by you? Who did you do right by? What did you do to survive? Kind of like the show Survivor, right? We're all in our own individual survival mode. And we've been in that energy since 2020. But maybe we've learned that throughout all of this, even though we're surviving, it's a choice of, are we just surviving or can we thrive in spite of adversity? And many of you learned that lesson. Many of you were able to rise above just surviving and thrive and circumvent the stories and the roadblocks and the obstacles and the, negative commentaries and the conversations of politics at dinner. You just rose above it. You decided that you would be something different and more for yourself, as opposed to being the external person that you've been for everyone else all this time. See, some of us learned to go inside in this 2021. We learned to be still and to listen. We learned to deal with our own fears and even face our own demons, the things that we really need to handle. Our difficulties within ourselves, our own insecurities, our own comparing mind, our own pettiness, our own inability to believe in something greater than us, or to believe that we're worthy, good enough, supported. Many of us had to overcome the times in our life when we felt most vulnerable and lost something in that process because our vulnerability wasn't honored. We had to sit with that in 2020 and 2021. And as we sat with it, we realized that many of us spent quite a bit of our lives burying the things that we didn't want to be seen, that we didn't want to deal with. But when you're just sitting there and not really going anywhere, you have time to think. When you're at your job, realizing that you're doing your job because it pays your bills, but you're not happy. And you're realizing that the breath of life is precious, and does one really know when one's time is up? For the soul to move on to a different experience. But what in the physicality, what in the experience of this life, this experience we call life, do you really want to enjoy? What have you yet to do? I know, it's a time where maybe we can't do the things we want, not to the fullest. But you can dream, and you can dream big, and you can be there in the energy, and you can set the pace for that to happen. This has been a year of loss for people as well. And what did you learn from that? We learned that people pass for all sorts of reasons. Not all of them is publicized as what we see on the news. We learned that someone who's rushing out of their complex makes a turn who possibly was on their phone in just a few minutes, barely a mile and a half from their house, can shoot off and hit a tree and then be gone just like that. We've seen so many people in our lives just leave. And then there's some of the greats that have been around for decades. We're seeing them in their natural order of life leave the planet. And what do you learn from their experiences? What do you learn from the people that you admire the most who have chosen to leave the planet? What legacy did they leave? What lesson did they give you? Be it a football coach, a movie star, a producer, or be it a mentor. What did you learn from them? How did they impact your life? And what are you doing in your life to leave your vibration and your legacy here? What have you learned about who you are, what you represent, who you are in the physical? And what have you embraced within yourself, your gifts, your true essence? And what have you shared? How have you survived all this time? Have you just been living to live, to get by, paycheck to paycheck? Are you living? And interestingly enough, life is not always living, of going out and partying and gathering with people. Those are fun experiences, but that isn't necessarily the definition of living. Life is about experiencing and being fully present with the people that you're with, be it one person, be it a group, be it fully present when sitting on a beach, just taking in the wind and the salt air, feeling the sand beneath your feet and hearing the waves of the ocean, or being out on a path through the woods on a chilly morning, hearing the sound of the leaves crackling beneath your feet, and hearing that bird off in the distance, and knowing that you're alive. And that moment belongs to you. You and the divine and all that's divine around you. Have you learned to find joy in the simple things, the family moments? Maybe we were all too busy prior to 2020. When was the last time you sat and played a family game? Monopoly, Scrabble, Battleship, Jenga. A good old-fashioned game of Twister will do too. What have you done to have fun? And how have you allowed yourself the opportunity to dream and to be fully present in the moment that you're in? Have you been able to forgive yourself and others for, missteps you've taken, they've taken? Are you able to let bygones be bygones? You see, when we ring that bell and the sound of 2022 comes upon us and the ball drops, you start anew. You have the choice. Is it a continuation of the same old, or do you have a plan? Do you have a vision of what 2022 looks like and feels like, in spite of what the world may be doing? What choices have you made? I know many of us make New Year's resolutions. Well, they usually only last 2 weeks, if you're lucky. But to have a vision and to be present in the actions you take and the thoughts that you choose to think and the words that you choose to speak in the creation of a vision, that's always going to be the best way to see yourself as you want to be. Whether it's working out, you have to feel it and see it. Whether it's losing weight, whether it's letting go of an addiction, whether it's finding a new job, what is it that you want to create and how can you create that? And embrace it with all that you are. And realize that if it's a day or two that is not measuring up to the vision you had for yourself, that when you awaken the very next day, the universe gives you another shot to start all over again. Why is it that when we fail to be perfect, we feel our imperfections are a defeat, and therefore we quit? Why is that? Are you not imperfectly perfect? I know I am. We're all going to have a misstep in the journey because it's the learning and the discovering of who you are and the ability to govern your thoughts and your emotions and to think positive thoughts, feel positive energy, see things in its completion, and trust that everything will be all right. It's the opening up of new opportunities. It's the trusting of the process. It's the letting go and letting God, but being the active participant in the process. So what are the goals for 2022? What would you love to shift and change? And as you move this energy into 2022, what are you appreciative of? Who would you thank? What are you grateful for? How has life been good to you, in spite of all the difficulties, the challenges, the shifts that were unexpected? And how proud are you of how you rose to the occasion and did it anyway? Lived in a way that it may not have been exactly the way you wanted, but you did your best, and you know it. And for those of us who miss those that are no longer here, like the young man a couple of months ago who somehow, on his way to work, ended up in a tree. Those crazy stories that you hear of people who we're sure will be here for such a long time, and they're not. Who do you miss? Who do you appreciate their breath of life and what they did for you in their journey? And what did you learn from them? I remember my grandmother used to always say, never go to bed mad. It's not good. So I never forgot that. So when you look at the energy of what people have shown you and taught you, what do you remember? What do you hold dear? And if they were here, still on the earth, what would you say to them? Because even though we cannot see them, they're here. They're a part of the experience with us. I know I learned a great deal from, well, my dog. I learned that unconditional love, dedication, consistency, and a very strong work ethic were good. Last Wednesday, when I took live on air, unbeknownst to most of you, my dog had passed that morning. 17 years and 8 months. Magnificent Bichon Frise, named Sydney. And he was a strong, dedicated dog. Not a very big dog. But Sydney taught me routine. His routine, but he taught me routine. And in a time when my life had brought me to Florida and I needed something to pull me out of a life switch of a physical ailment that would make me do it not just for me, but for him. So every day, regardless of how I felt from an injury, out we would go. And I would walk. In the beginning, when he was a pup, we couldn't get very far because I wasn't strong enough at the time. But we walked. And then we would go out again and again and again. I used to think he was leaving emails on trees for people. I think quite a few people read them along the way. And on Tuesday night, December 22nd, we took our last walk. Out on a quiet night in a quiet street with a neighborhood cat running up to say hi. It was a regular night. But for him, it was the last one. So life is unexpected. But for a Bichon Frise, 17 years plus is a lot. It's almost certainly not totally unexpected. But what have you learned? How has your experience with people, with animals, shifted you, changed you? Because when they're gone, they may not be here with you, your loved ones, your pets, but their energy remains within. Within your heart, within your soul, they have taught you. They have been a part of this magnificent journey called life. And yes, they have all chosen to be here at exactly the same precise time as all of us. And we have all chosen to experience the journey. And as we've learned this life lesson, that life comes to a close. What other lessons have you learned so that you can enjoy what comes next for you? So that you can reach for new heights, spread your wings, take flight, and believe that there's something greater, bigger, stronger supporting you. Essentially, holding your hand, walking the path of life. So as you walk out on the streets on a cool night or a warm Florida eve, and you look up at the stars, there's something greater and bigger looking back down at you. And in the sea of the essence, your loved ones are there, your angels, your guides, and the Creator. And they're holding the space and supporting you and sending you those blueprints, those imprints, those visions for you to make the shift, for you to make the change, for 2022 to be the year that you learned lessons that were about being you, that you learned the lessons about your mission, your purpose, who you've come to be, and that life is eternal, even though the physical body leaves. We are all here to grow. We're all here to learn. And my goodness, 2021 has taught us quite a bit. But now it's time to pack our bags and put a close to those lessons learned and pat ourselves on the back and say, job well done. No matter what it is, you've passed through it. You won't pass this way again. The planets will change, the stars will realign, and life will go on. But you can create the new story and the new way you want your 2022 to be. So goodbye, 2021. We're not too sorry to see you go. But let's get ready for the greatness that can be for you. And if we all focus individually on finding the joy, finding the happiness, finding the peace, finding the forgiveness, being centered in the energy of love, And then once we find it, some of us may dig for a while, but it's there. When you find it, just think. All you've got to do is shine it out. And then maybe, just maybe, in the course of 2022, all of us who've learned some lessons will encourage others to learn along with us. And we will shift where we've been to a place greater than maybe mankind has ever known. I said we could dream big. Let's dream together.